Hello there and welcome to the T-Junction. I'm Jats, and in this Passion for Cars episode we visit Mark Dwyer. You may remember Mark from our previous episode where he shared his restoration journey of the Mercedes Benz 220SEb Pagoda that is owned by his wife Nikki. In this episode, Mark shares the love for his very own 1965 Mercedes Benz 220SEb Coupe and his journey with it from a humble, unloved white car to a thing of absolute beauty.
I spent a lot of time working in the West End of London. And while we were driving around there, there's a lot of embassies. And they all seem to have the same penchant for classic Mercedes of a certain style. And I used to see these 111 coupes, which is what the vehicle is, cruising around Chelsea and Knightsbridge. And they had all the windows down. It was a lovely looking, slender, elegant, pillarless coupe. And it just stuck with me. And I thought, well, what a lovely thing to drive that would be. As it turned out, with Nikki owning her Pagoda for 24 years now, it needed some restoration work. But while the Pagoda was in for restoration, I really missed my classic Mercedes motoring. And I thought, well, I've got the opportunity now. I'd really like to have a look at one of these 111 coupes. So started looking around, found a nice little specialised dealership in South London, and I went down to look at actually another car. It was a 4-door car that I went down to have a look at.
Yeah.
But far off in the distance, in the deep bowels of this chap's garage, there was a white car, and it had a Pagoda roof upturned, sitting on top of the roof of it. If I described to you that it had a crate on the bonnet and a chicken sitting on the boot,
Unloved.
it was that kind of feel that it had. And I started looking at it, and he said, "Oh, you're not interested in that, are you?" He said, "I've been trying to get rid of that for a couple of years." So we edged towards it, and he did his salesman pitch and cleaned it off a little bit. And I saw it, the lines of it. I saw the potential.
This car, as are your others, they're not creations. I think you've almost curated them. They're almost exhibits in their own right.
It seemed natural that if I was going to show anything at all of the cars that I adore, then I was going to do them to a certain level. I'm particularly happy with this car because the others, we've given ourselves a little bit of free rein on. We've allowed a little bit of personalisation. But with this one, I wanted to keep it as Paul Brack, the designer of this particular model of Mercedes, had intended. And there is something iconic about these vaulted wings, the tombstone headlights, and these high grills that just speak volumes to me.
Tell me the story, because you told me a story, didn't you, about the headlight when you were a child?
That's right. We lived in not the greatest part of the world.
Right.
We lived on some back streets on the other side of Leicester, 2 up, 2 down terraces. It was unusual, very rare to see cars of this standard around our streets. And I can recall being yay big, and one of these cars turned up on our street. Must have been somebody visiting somebody else. And I remember seeing the tombstone headlight and going up to it and wrapping my arm around the vault on there.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest thing that I've ever seen. I think the thing now is it's the equivalent of standing back and looking at a cathedral.
Yeah.
It had hairs on the back of your neck kind of feel to it.
And you were only that big.
And I was that big. And something stuck. I knew that I would have to have a stacked headlight Mercedes one day.
And you've
I
got
know-
2 now, haven't you? Which is even more interesting.
Yes, yes. I suppose you could count it as 3.
Oh, yeah, I suppose it is actually,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's
it
all
is,
3,
yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
I did a lot of work in the West End of London. We were always around Knightsbridge, Chelsea, and you'd see cars of this quality in abundance. They were particularly fond of using these cars around the embassies, around the back of the Science Museum, Natural History Museum, where I used to work quite regularly. And they were always in navy blue, and the chrome was complementing it so well. And the guys in the suits with their very elegant looking wives, they would cruise up and down the streets of London, stopping wherever the hell they liked. We were always covered by double yellow lines. It didn't seem to matter to them. They could park these wherever they liked, and so they should. And so they should. But I'd always had a soft spot for these cars. If I was going to get one, it would have to be down in the London area. So I started looking at the dealerships. I found a chap who specialised particularly in pagodas. And at that point in time, he was doing like 300 SL roadsters and like the Gullwings.
Right.
When they were starting to get out of the realms of affordable, now they're beyond.
Well, they're beyond
they're
affordability.
in another league. So went and had a chat with him. Went down there to look at a 4-door Fintail, actually, that was navy blue with a lot of chrome on it, and it had that kind of look and that elegant feel to it. So you see these cars swooping around back streets of London, and it's all very elegant, and I want one of those.
I want one.
I want one of those. So we went and we had a look, and we arrived at quite a good deal, and I knew from what we'd gone through on the Pagoda that there were things to be revealed on the car. I knew that there would be issues with it, but we'd lined up some people, and the Mercedes Benz Club were very good about giving advice, saying, well, okay, seeing as you're driving it up country, go to this guy who specialises in them, and he can do an assessment for you. I was comfortable enough at that point in time to buy the car, take it to him, have it assess him, and then report back to me and say, you're going to need this, you're going to need that.
Yeah. I suppose it's the experience you have from the
It was
Pagoda.
the experience, because I was surprised. I was surprised how short the list was. They were all big ticket items, but it was a short list.
Yeah. So my father had a couple of the Fintail Coupe saloons, sorry, I should say, the W111 saloons. He had one in the 70s and one in the 80s. I know they can dilapidate.
The chap who had it before bought it for his daughter's wedding. Unfortunately, he fell ill just a little while after that. So he spent the next 20 years being backed out of a garage once a year to go down and do an MOT half a mile away.
Oh, right.
And then put back in the garage.
Again.
So it put on no miles at all. So there was standard wear and tear on the car, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. There was a few welts in the bodywork, a few ripples on the bottom of the door. If you know some people, and I did at that point, so I was comfortable handing it over to them. I knew I was going to get a roll of the eyes like you do from these guys who, oh, you again.
Not you again.
Another one.
Not another one.
So we're doing one for you over there. Why do you want another one? So we were happy enough getting this one, and because I'd got these things in place, it came together quite quickly. And if you can believe this, it was almost painless doing it because I anticipated what was involved.
So how long have you had this one for?
This one, I think it must be getting on for a dozen years.
Right, it's about 12 years.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw this at a garden centre a few years ago, before we'd met.
Yeah.
And I just stood there and I looked at it, just the garden centre just down the road.
Yeah.
And I stood there and I looked at it and I said to my wife, that is a proper car.
Yeah.
And she said, it's an old car. I said, no, that is a proper car.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it's got this regal look about it. And I think you've done the right thing, Mark, if I can say so, because you've kept it completely standard.
That was important. Just going back to the story of where the chap took it half a mile down the road for the MOT, his register for backing it into the garage was when the bumper hit the wall. So the bumper, as tough as these chrome things are, was a write-off. It looked like a cheese grater. So I knew that that would be an issue. But somebody in the Mercedes Benz club pointed me in the direction of this Vietnamese company who stamped these things out and hand rolled some of it in stainless steel. The front ones are factory. These are the white chrome. They're as they should be. But the rear ones are all stainless steel. And I approached Mercedes and I said, I need bumpers for this car. I said, I'm quite prepared to pay for them. And they said, hang on, let me stop you there. These cars, they're not standard fitments for even like the four-door ones. They're unique to these coupes. We've not got enough batch orders in front of us to actually warrant a production run. So you're going to have to wait. It's going to cost you X amount of money, which was twice as much as I thought it was going to be. And you'd have to wait 18 months, maybe 2 years.
Wow.
Well, that's no good. I want to use the car. But the bumper from the original was that bad that I could not use it. So I approached this Vietnamese company and they said, yes, no problem. Quoted half the price of Mercedes. It was there in 3 weeks, turned up at our door. It was all wonderfully wrapped.
And this is from Vietnam?
From Vietnam. It was all wonderfully wrapped.
Yeah.
And they even supplied stainless steel bolts to bolt it to the bodywork.
Oh, how wonderful.
And when we brought it in, even Nick was surprised at how nice it looked in the packaging and everything. He said, shall we offer it up and try it? Because there wasn't a bumper on at that point in time. And while I held it in position, Nick got underneath on the towel and with these stainless steel bolts, bolted it to the bodywork. And it went on in 20 minutes.
Straight into the OEM holes that were already there, all perfectly lined.
Yeah, I honestly, I couldn't believe it. And Nick put the bumper on this car, and that's a nice personal touch for me.
It's an extraordinary story, that is, isn't it? Of how the world has become a very small place.
Yeah, it has.
Or it can be a very big place if you're not looking in the right place.
Yes, so, that's right. So we're very happy with how these things turned out. The interior was in poor condition. The dashboard was snapped up and it was in cardboard boxes in the boot. And somebody had a bash at it with a belt sander and chewed through the veneer back down to the substrate. So me knowing what I know with the carpentry cabinet making stuff, it was a relatively easy and I have to say quite enjoyable thing.
Therapeutic for you, I suppose.
It was.
Because you're doing something you're trained to do on something you love.
There was no fear. There was no fear factor like there normally would be when you're tackling something like this. But I wanted to overdo it. Do you know what I mean? Because you can do these things, should you? And so Nick exercised great restraint and said, you've done enough. You've got it stable. It's a unified colour. It's not as pretty as it could be, but it's right for the age of the car. So just put some beeswax on it and put it on as that. And she was right, because now it looks perfect with...
It's $1 million, isn't it? It's the sort of car you could imagine just cruising around in California or somewhere, isn't it? It's absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it is. I have got other cars where they're all singing, all dancing, and you can do a lot of miles per hour in. And the modern ones are like the Starship Enterprise when you press the button and all the lights shine up and it's a wonderful place to be. This, I can drive at 20 miles an hour everywhere. It's like sitting in a gentleman's lounge, relaxing in those deep plush leather seats, looking over that dashboard that I put a lot of work in myself. And looking out over these vaulted wings and through this three-pointed star, you feel like a dictator. You don't need to go fast. 0 to 60, I think if you're lucky, 14 seconds.
Yeah, probably.
It's not the fastest thing in the world.
Because they're only just over 100 brake horsepower, I think, aren't they? There's not a huge amount of power.
I think about 135, something like that. It's not the fastest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Once you're up there and you're cruising along, it feels effortless. Yeah, it really does.
And it is a steering column shift, this one.
It is. It's a column shift.
Yeah.
So
I remember my dad's as well. Yeah. So, it brings back a few memories for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lovely to see door mirrors actually on a car rather than window
Yes,
mirrors.
and they come in handy actually because I never thought that I would own a car that had the potential to be a wedding car.
Right.
But we've been at a couple of shows,
Yeah.
and I got asked once or twice. Said, "No, I don't think so." So for ladies getting in the back with a big meringue dress or something like that, it's a two-door. You got to put the seat forward. No, this is the look. This is the car we want. So I did use it
Right.
for. It's been out to a couple of three now,
Right.
and I have to say that there's a lot of wait around and hurry up on
Yeah.
those days,
Yeah.
but you don't go home underfed.
No.
Well, put it like that. At the reception, and probably the best one, that there was an Indian wedding that I did, and these guys were coming out with plates like this table
Yeah.
full of samosas and this, that, and the other, and they wanted to talk about the car. And I was saying, well, you have a look around the car. I'm just going to try these if you
Yeah.
don't mind.
You can have a look first.
So yes,
Yeah.
it's actually provided some great little days out on its own doing these as a wedding car. The preparation that you do for that
Yeah.
day, you want the car to look the best it's ever been
Mhm.
for that day.
Yeah.
So rather than just, I mean, they're all in clean condition anyway. But to clean it for someone's special day like that, you put in the extra effort.
Yeah.
And I bet I negated anything that I made in money or anything like that doing it for the day.
Just in the effort and the prep.
It
Yeah.
was more for the privilege of being asked and being invited and doing the day for them.
Well,
It
you
was
should
a
be
nice thing
applauded.
to do.
I mean, you should be applauded, Mark, because at the end of the day, a car like this could just be tucked away in a garage just for you to enjoy. But for other people to enjoy it as well is brilliant.
Yes, it did get well received, and after they'd had their wedding photos done, I got a lot of those shots sent through. So
Right.
I'm really happy with how that turned out.
So we go back to the restoration of this car. I mean,
Yes.
you've obviously, it's gone from white to being blue. When did that happen? Was that shortly after you bought it, or was this a long sort of protracted journey?
No, actually, the blue colour came about as a test bed because we were in the middle of 2 years into doing the
Oh yes,
restoration
yeah,
of the pagoda. We wanted to be sure of the colour because we weren't nervous about putting the colour on the pagoda, and we'd done the swatches and we'd arrived at the little trick with the thimble full of metal flake in the clear lacquer, and we liked how that looked. So I had him spray a wing on this, and it was because I had in mind that this would be a navy blue car. I liked the regality of that deep blue and the chrome, and how elegant and sleek that they look when I'd seen them just in my mind's eye from being down Chelsea and Knightsbridge. But we put the colour on this car and it just suited it so well. And I was and ahhing, I was 50-50 over it. And Nick said, I think it works. You won't regret it. He says, you've got to have the rest of the car done like that. So we use this car as the prototype for the colour that the pagoda eventually
right.
became. So that's how it arrived at this colour. And everywhere we go, particularly when they're sitting on my shoulder or Nick's on my shoulder, everywhere we go now, people say, that car, that colour of that car, it's so well suited together. I always get a whisper in my ear, I told you so. And that's what I get. But she was right. It was the right colour for this car.
Yeah.
It reduces kind of the size of it as well.
Yeah, it does.
Its presence on the road.
I think the presence. There's an element of almost, like I said earlier, it's almost curated. It's like an exhibition piece.
Yeah.
But this colour just is quite unique.
Yeah, it is. It's elegant.
This car. It's elegant. That's great, Mark. So, I mean, obviously, it's an old car at the end of the day. It's, 60 odd years old almost, isn't it? So, or approaching that sort of age. It's 65, I think.
I checked the logbook on this car, and my date of birth was May 65.
Okay.
This was on the production line in May 65.
Oh my goodness.
So this is why it's special to me. It's my car.
Yeah.
It's my age of car.
Yeah.
And this is why it holds such great affection.
This is how the hoi polloi were driving around back in the day when you were born. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
the reliability of it is generally very good. You have to have a regime with these cars. particularly once a year around the underside of all three of the 60s, early 70s cars that we've got. There's like 18 grease points on the suspension. And because they're heavy cars, they can be quite wearing on the brakes and the bushes. So we regularly keep on top of those. The engine on this is really very, very good. It was blowing a bit of smoke when we first had it, and it didn't need it, but I had the head stripped right back down so we could see the pistons and a full top end rebuild. And as it turned out, my mechanic, when we took the out, he said, "Looks like it's just run in." So,
what more can you ask for?
So it's been pretty much faultless. It's not even had a blow nose. I'm trying to think back for the odd time. I think on days like this where you've got a lot of heat, then I think that you might get a little bit of blip if she's sitting in traffic for a while, and she'll grumble about sitting out. Why am I out in this heat when I should be somewhere else? In the shade. But then the traffic frees up. And we're out on a B road, you start cruising along and the temperature drops a bit right in the nice operating window, and it floats and wafts. It's such a nice place to be.
No, I'm sure. Well, thank you, Mark, for taking the time to share this wonderful journey. I mean, this car is absolutely gorgeous, and I think there are so many people, so many viewers out there who would probably give an arm and a leg to get anywhere near this sort of machinery. So thank you once again for allowing us to come and enjoy this.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you too for tuning in today. If you do like this content, then please hit the like button, subscribe. Let us know in the comments below what you really think. What we're about is trying to create a community of people who are like-minded. We're just normal people, just like Mark, myself. We're not millionaires by any stretch of the imagination, but we have a passion for cars. And we want to share that with you. And if you have a journey or a story or something you'd like to share, then please do get in touch. I'm Jats. This is the T-Junction. This was a People's Passion for Cars episode. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.